What did you do when you found out the real reason behind why your parents abused you? I was 11 years old when my parents pulled me out of school for a family emergency. I remember my mom driving me home and seeing my entire extended family in the living room. I honestly thought someone had died. Sit down. My dad started. I did. My mom spoke next. Sweetheart, this is an intervention. We've noticed you're getting a little too big, a little too fat. It's time to make some changes. I looked around the room, and my entire family were nodding approvingly. That's when my dad whipped out a huge sheet of paper. Here are the new rules, he said. Matter-of-factly. I had to force myself not to cry as he continued. You're only allowed to eat 50% of what you're eating right now, with non-negotiable daily weigh-ins every morning. With each rule he read out, he got happier and happier. My mom chimed in, we're doing this because we love you, honey. But I was confused because at 5 feet, I only weighed 80 pounds. I literally weighed the same as my mom. I couldn't understand why they wanted me to lose weight so badly, but they kept telling me I was fat. So eventually, I believed that was the reason why, and kept starving myself. By 16, I was hospitalized with an eating disorder. When my mom saw me in the hospital bed, she waited until the nurse left, then whispered with happy tears in her eyes, I'm so proud of you, baby. It wasn't until I turned 21 and saved enough money to move out that things started to change, because that's when I met Killian. He was sweet and constantly reminded me how much I deserved to eat, but he had one orange flag, and that was that he couldn't keep quiet. If anyone treated me badly, he would get up and shout at them straight away. He wasn't afraid to call out anyone on their BS. So when we were on the way to my parents' house to meet them for the first time, I made him promise me something. No matter what they say, please don't speak up. I know you want to defend me, but if you start a fight, it'll make everything worse. I need to handle them my way. He nodded. I promise. I actually believed he wouldn't say anything. Dinner started fine. Awkward small talk. Forced smiles, but civil. But everything changed when my mom reached across the table and physically took a piece of chicken off my plate. You don't need all that, honey, she said casual, like it was nothing. I froze. Every feeling I'd spent years healing from came. I'm flooding back. I was 11 again, standing in front of that mirror, hating myself. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. Then Killian broke his promise and spoke up. Why do you treat her like this? You both weigh more than her, but you're determined to starve her. The table went silent. I shot Killian a look. I thought he'd just done something destructive. I felt betrayed. I expected my dad to stand up and start screaming. Instead, he just sighed. Maybe it's time we were honest with you. I felt my heart stop. Honest about what? My mom's voice was barely a whisper. Starving you was never about your weight. The next, my mom's voice was barely a whisper. Starving you was never about your weight. The air in the room grew heavy, suffocating. I looked from my mother's teary eyes to my father's stoic face. Killian sat next to me, his hand gripping mine under the table, his knuckles white. What? I choked out. What do you mean? My dad poured himself a glass of wine, his hand trembling slightly. It was the first sign of weakness I'd ever seen in him. When you were born, he started, staring into the dark red liquid. We were struggling. Your mother and I, we weren't ready. Financially, emotionally. We were children ourselves, my mom interrupted, her voice gaining a strange, defensive edge. And then my mother, your grandmother, she made us an offer. I blinked. My grandmother? The woman who sent me birthday cards with $5 in them and died when I was 14? She was wealthy, Dad said. Wealthier than you knew. But she was controlling. She hated that we had a child so young. She said it would ruin our lives. But when she saw you, she changed. Or we thought she did. She set up a trust, Mom said, looking down at her empty plate. A massive trust fund. For you. But there were conditions. Stipulations that she controlled until you turned 25. What kind of stipulations? Killian asked, his voice low and dangerous. Health, Dad said. Discipline. She was obsessed with image. She believed that discipline was the key to success, and she defined discipline by physical appearance. Thinness. My head spun. You starved me for money? No. Mom cried out, reaching for my hand across the table. I pulled back as if burned. Not for us. For you. If you didn't meet her standards, the money would go to charity. All of it. Millions, sweetheart. Millions that will be yours in 4 years. She's dead, I whispered. She died years ago. Why didn't it stop? The executor, Dad said heavily. Your Uncle Marcus. He checks. He still checks. The weigh-ins, the reports. We had to send them to him. If we didn't, the trust would be voided. I sat back in my chair, the room tilting. Uncle Marcus. The man who sat in the corner at family gatherings, watching me with cold, evaluating eyes. The man who nodded approvingly at the intervention. You hospitalized me, I said, my voice rising. I almost died. Was the money worth my life? We didn't think it would go that far, Mom sobbed. We just wanted to secure your future. We thought you'd thank us one day. I looked at them, really looked at them, for the first time. I didn't see parents. I saw captors. I saw two weak, greedy people who had sold their daughter's soul for a payout they couldn't even touch yet. Let's go, I said to Killian. Wait. Dad stood up. You can't leave. Marcus is coming over later. He needs to see you. He knows you're in town. Killian stood up, towering over my father. If Marcus comes near her, he'll need a dentist, not a weigh-in. We walked out of the house, leaving my parents sitting in the ruins of their confession. The drive back to our apartment was silent. Killian drove with one hand on the wheel and the other holding mine, rubbing his thumb over my knuckles in a soothing rhythm. When we got inside, I collapsed onto the sofa. I didn't cry. I was past crying. I felt hollowed out, scraped clean by the betrayal. Millions imuteurs. They tortured me for millions. Killian sat on the floor in front of me, looking up into my face. It's not about the money, babe. It's about control. They let a dead woman and a creepy uncle run your life. I need to see the will, I said, a sudden clarity piercing the fog. I need to know if they're telling the truth or if this is just another lie to manipulate me. How? Uncle Marcus. He's a lawyer. His firm handles everything. The next morning, I didn't go to work. I went to the law offices of Harrow and Marcus. Killian insisted on coming, wearing his "Don't Mess With Me" jacket. Marcus was surprised to see us. He ushered us into his plush corner office, his eyes scanning my body instantly. Old habits die hard. You look healthy, he said, the word sounding like an insult. Cut the crap, Marcus, I said, sitting down without being asked. I know about the trust. I know about the stipulations. I want to see the documents. Marcus leaned back, steepling his fingers. Your parents finally cracked, did they? Weak. I told them to keep their mouths shut until you were 25. Show me the papers. He opened a drawer and pulled out a thick file. He slid it across the desk. I opened it. It was all there. The trust fund, established by Beatrice Halloway. Value, $15 million. Beneficiary me. Trustee, Marcus Halloway. Stipulation 4.A. The beneficiary must maintain a BMI strictly under 19. Quarterly reports required. Stipulation 4.B. Failure to comply results in the immediate dissolution of the trust, with funds redirected to the Feline Appreciation Society of New York. I stared at the words. Feline Appreciation Society. My grandmother liked cats more than she liked me. But here's the kicker, Marcus said, a smug smile playing on his lips. Clause 7. If the parents fail to enforce the stipulations, they lose their monthly stipend. I looked up. Stipend? $5,000 a month, Marcus said. For administrative costs. Your parents have been living off your starvation for a decade. The rage that exploded in my chest was hot and white. It wasn't just for my future. It was for their present. They weren't saving the money for me. They were eating because I wasn't. Is there a way to break it? Killian asked. Ironclad, Marcus smirked. Unless what? Unless you can prove the trustee me acted in bad faith or abused his power. He laughed. Good luck with that. We left the office with a copy of the trust. We're going to sue them, Killian said as we walked down the street. We're going to sue your parents, Marcus, the ghost of your grandmother, everyone. No, I said, stopping on the sidewalk. A lawsuit takes years. Marcus has the money to bury us in paperwork. I want to hurt them. I want to take away the only thing they care about. The money. Exactly. I spent the next week researching. I wasn't a lawyer, but I was angry, and anger is a powerful fuel. I read every line of that trust document. I found loopholes, definitions, vague phrasing. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. I received an email from an anonymous sender. Subject, Marcus. Attached was a series of photos. Marcus on a yacht. Marcus at a casino. Marcus handing cash to a woman who definitely wasn't his wife. The text read, he's been dipping into the principal. Check the audit logs. I showed Killian. Who sent this? Someone who hates him as much as you do, Killian mused. Maybe his wife. Or a disgruntled employee. If he's stealing from the trust, I said, a slow smile spreading across my face. Then he violated his fiduciary duty. That voids his control. And the stipulations? If the trustee is removed for cause, the court appoints a new one. Or, they dissolve the trust and distribute the assets immediately to the beneficiary if they deem the conditions contrary to public policy, or abusive. Abusing a child to keep them thin is definitely abusive, Killian said. We needed proof. Real proof. Not just photos. We need to get into his computer, I said. Killian looked at me like I was crazy. Babe, I love you, but we're not spies. We can't just Mission Impossible our way into a law firm. No, I agreed. But I know someone who can. My cousin Leo. The black sheep of the family. The one who got disowned for hacking his high school's grading system. Leo lived in a basement apartment that smelled of old pizza and ozone. When I told him the story, he didn't look surprised. Aunt Beatrice was a witch, he muttered, typing furiously on 3 keyboards at once. I always knew something was up with your parents. They got new cars every year, while you looked like a skeleton. Can you get the audit logs? I asked. Marcus is old school, Leo said. He probably keeps his passwords on a sticky note. Give me an hour. 40 minutes later, Leo spun his chair around. Got it. And wow, he's greedy. He's siphoned off about $2 million in the last 5 years. Consulting fees, travel expenses. He even bought a condo in Miami with trust money. Print everything, I said. Armed with the evidence, we went to the police. Not for a lawsuit, but for criminal charges. Embezzlement is a felony. The investigation was swift. Marcus was arrested at his country club. The news was everywhere. Prominent lawyer accused of stealing from niece's trust fund. My parents called me in a panic. What have you done? My dad screamed over the phone. The stipend. They froze the accounts. Good, I said calmly. Maybe you can lose some weight now. I hung up and blocked their numbers. The civil case to dissolve the trust happened 3 months later. I sat in the courtroom with Killian holding my hand. My parents were there, sitting in the back, looking small and fearful. Marcus was absent, currently awaiting trial in jail. The judge was a stern woman with glasses perched on the end of her nose. She read the stipulations of the trust out loud. When she got to the BMI requirement, she paused and looked over her glasses at the lawyer representing my grandmother's estate. Is this a joke? She asked. It was the grantor's wish, Your Honor, the lawyer stammered. It is child abuse codified into a legal document, the judge snapped. It is unconscionable. And given the criminal actions of the former trustee, I am inclined to throw the whole thing out. She ruled in my favor. The trust was dissolved. The stipulations were voided. The remaining money, $13 million, was transferred to me immediately. I walked out of that courtroom a multimillionaire. But I didn't feel rich. I felt free. My parents were waiting outside. Honey, my mom started, putting on her best loving mother face. We are so proud of you. You fought for what was yours. Now we really need to talk about the future. We have some debts. I stopped and looked at them. The sun was shining, and for the first time in my life, I didn't care what they thought of me. No, I said. What? Dad asked. No. You don't get a penny. You spent 10 years torturing me for $5,000 a month. You valued my health at $60,000 a year. That's your price. You've been paid. You can't do this to us. Mom shrieked, her mask slipping. We're your parents. Biologically, yes. But parents protect their children. You fed me to the wolves. I took Killian's arm. Let's go get a burger. We moved to a new city. I bought a house with a big kitchen. I started therapy. Real therapy, not the court-ordered nonsense I had as a kid. I learned to eat without guilt. I learned to look in the mirror and see a person, not a number. I used the money to start a foundation for victims of financial and emotional abuse. I called it the Beatrice Project, just to spite the old hag. My parents tried to sue me for parental support. It was laughed out of court. They lost their house. I heard they moved into a small apartment. I heard my dad had to get a job at a hardware store. I didn't care. One night, a year later, I was making dinner. Killian was setting the table. You know, he said, looking at me with that same intensity he had the first day we met. You never did thank me for breaking my promise. What promise? Not to speak up at dinner that night. I laughed, flipping a steak in the pan. Best broken promise of my life. He walked over and wrapped his arms around me, resting his chin on my head. You deserve to eat, you know. You deserve everything. I know, I said. And for the first time, I truly believed it. The end.